Smart buyers trust their instincts. You hear that a lot, and okay, fair enough, I guess. For the first few weeks, that's probably true, but here's the thing. The longer you search, the worse your instincts actually get. What felt like settling in month 1, after 5 months of looking, that same house starts feeling like it's more realistic. That's the trap. And I want to be clear, this isn't like a willpower problem, it's a process problem. So I put together a clear-headed buyer system that walks you through exactly how to protect your judgment when emotions are running pretty high. So I've helped a lot of families navigate this exact situation over the past few years, and here's what I've learned. The buyers who really love their house 2 years later, they're not the ones who found the perfect house. They're the ones who protected their judgment when they started to get worn down by their search. So here's how to actually train yourself to buy the right home, even when everything in you just wants to pick something and be done with it. Okay, the first thing, you can't fix desperation once you're in it. You have to catch it early on. And I get it, it makes sense. You'd think that you'll know when you're being too desperate. Most buyers feel that way. But the thing is about desperation is that it doesn't exactly announce itself. It kind of shows up as like rationalization. And in the moment, that rationalization feels completely logical. That's what makes it so hard to catch. Here's why this happens. When you've been searching for months, lost a few offers, maybe more than a few, your brain starts protecting itself from disappointment. It does that by slowly lowering your standards. Sounds a little bit like my early dating life. I digress. Psychologists call it adaptation level theory. Think about it as your brain's automatic adjustment system. You literally stop seeing problems that would have stopped you cold 3 months ago because your baseline has shifted and you don't even notice that it's happening. This becomes really critical the moment you catch yourself saying, we could make this work, about something that was on your absolute no-go list not too long ago. Or when you're justifying a house by comparing it to the worst one that you saw last week instead of your original criteria. That's when you know. Maybe this will land with some people, but think about a poker player who's been bluffed 3 hands in a row. By the 4th hand, they're not really evaluating whether it's a good hand anymore. They're just thinking, I need to win this one. That's kind of exactly what happens in month 5 of house hunting. You're not evaluating the house, you're just trying to win on offer night. Before you start looking, and I mean before, not halfway through, write down 3 specific things that would make you pause and take almost a full week off from searching. Maybe it's, if I start considering houses with no parking, or if I catch myself saying that commute isn't too bad, that's about a 90-minute drive. These become your early warning signals so that when you hit one of them, you know your judgment is being compromised. And catching desperation early is the foundation, but even if you've got those warning signals locked in, you still need a system that holds up when you're actually feeling pressure. Here's what most people miss. You cannot build solid decision making while you're emotionally invested in a specific house. All of your walkaway criteria have to be set before you fall in love with anything. And that needs to make sense to you before you walk through a single door. Now, there's a reason that this works. There's a guy named Richard Thaler. He's a Nobel Prize winner. And his research shows that when you pre-commit to future decisions, you take the emotional heat out of the choice. So when you're standing in this lovely kitchen thinking about Sunday morning coffee, and I've genuinely seen this happen, your brain isn't doing math about the monthly payments anymore. I would say it's just not capable of it in that moment. I used to teach science, high school science. And I think about it the same way that I thought about lab safety. You don't teach students about safety protocols after the chemicals are mixed, as much as the kids would have loved that. You drill them when their thinking is clear. This is kind of the same idea here. This becomes critical the night before your first showing, not during, not after you've gone to see 3 houses and you've got a feel for the market, before you are emotionally invested in any outcome. Sit down with your partner when you're not in the middle of searching, decide what's the absolute maximum monthly payment where you two can still sleep at night. What's the longest commute you'd actually accept for 5 years? Not survive, accept. What are 3 renovation projects that would make you walk away? Write them down, sign them. These become your non-negotiables when emotions are running high and nothing feels clear anymore. Having rock solid criteria is genuinely powerful, but there's something that matters even more than that. And I'd say this is the place that most buyers overlook. You need a real backup plan. And I want to be specific. Not a backup house, a backup to the entire process of buying a house. Without that, every offer night kind of feels like your last chance. And when it feels like your last chance, you're negotiating with yourself more than anyone else, and that's a problem. Negotiation experts call this your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement. In other words, your next best option if a deal doesn't work out. When you have a genuine alternative you're actually comfortable with, you negotiate from strength. When your only option is buy something or keep being miserable, the other side already has you. And here's where it gets interesting. Right now in East York, there are about 100 freehold properties available for rent. So no condos, and they have at least 2 bedrooms and they're not basement units. And according to Urbanation, for the first time in a while, Toronto's condo rental market actually has real options. Vacancy rates hit 3% this year. That's the highest since 2021. Purpose-built rental properties are also offering signing bonuses, free months, even moving allowances. I saw a sign on Eglinton just on the weekend that had all 3 listed. So these are the kinds of things that you would not have seen a couple of years ago. Here's something that most agents probably won't bring up. And yes, I'm a realtor, so I do recognize the irony in saying this, but 2-bedroom houses in East York are renting for around $2,800 a month. That's probably just the main or an upper unit. 3 bedrooms are around $4,200. To own those same comparable properties, you're looking at anywhere from $5,000 a month for a 2-bed or $6,300 a month for a 3-bed when you factor in mortgage, property taxes, and maintenance. So we're kind of talking about $2,200 extra a month for a 2-bedroom, $2,100 a month for a 3-bedroom. I want you to sit with that just for a second. That's not just a line on a spreadsheet. That's a reasonable amount of cash flow every single month just to say that you own it. Now, for some people, a move like that, the math still makes total sense. Equity, stability, all of it. But before you make another offer, spend one afternoon, maybe a weekend, actually looking at rental options in your target neighborhoods. Not because you want to rent for forever, but because knowing if you have a comfortable plan B, it changes how you show up on offer night. And when you're choosing a house, instead of settling for whatever or whoever accepts your offer, you make completely different decisions. And speaking of keeping your head clear through all of this, this is exactly the kind of framework my Clear-Headed Buyer System walks you through step by step. It's completely free and the link is in the description below. Even with clear criteria and a real backup plan, there's one more thing that trips up smart buyers after months of searching, and I think this one is fairly underrated. Your palate gets contaminated. Think about how wine tasters work. They cleanse their palate between tastings, not because they forgot what wine tastes like, but because their judgment gets muddied without a reset. House hunters, you need the same thing. For the most part, we do the exact opposite. Here's what the research shows. Decision fatigue is measurable. Studies show that judges give harsher sentences before lunch and more lenient ones after a break. Your ability to evaluate houses drops with each viewing. The tricky part is you don't feel it happening because the decline is really gradual. This becomes really important when house number 14 from last weekend starts looking pretty good in your memory, or when you catch yourself thinking, maybe the electrical issues aren't that serious, when that would have scared you away 2 months ago. You're not alone in that. I hear it all the time from people in your situation. So after a month of active searching, take nearly a full week off. Not 2 days, almost a full week. Take like Thursday to Tuesday off or something like that. Do something completely unrelated to real estate. Let your brain reset to your original criteria instead of whatever the last month kind of trains you to accept. When you come back, the first house you see will tell you a lot about whether your standards have drifted or if they've legitimately changed. Now, all of these things work, but there's one final piece I think that makes the real difference between families who love their home and families who regret it a few years later. Your agent and your mortgage broker should be protecting your judgment, not just moving your search forward. But most buyers are kind of afraid to seem difficult, so they don't want to use their team to reality check their decisions when things get emotional. And I get why it can feel a bit awkward, but it is a mistake. Here's the psychology on this. When you're emotionally invested, you stop really hearing advice that conflicts with what you already want to do. So you need people in your corner who are contractually obligated to give you honest feedback, even when it's not what you want to hear. One of the things that people like us do, we have those hard conversations before you fall in love with something, not after. This becomes really important the moment you catch yourself thinking, we can make this work. about a house that checks maybe 4 out of 7 boxes of your original criteria, that's not optimism, that's compromise fatigue, for lack of a better word, and it tends to lead to purchases that you'll regret in a couple of years. One of the best pieces of feedback that I've ever gotten, and it was somewhat recent, from a client was someone who wrote in the review that they joked that I didn't actually want them to buy a house. Here's what they said in our WhatsApp chat as a joke, and here's what they wrote in their Google review of me. And I think that's exactly kind of right. My job isn't to get you into any house, it's to protect your judgment when the process tries to wear you down. So tell your agent explicitly, I want you to challenge me if you think that I'm settling. Give your mortgage broker permission to ask you the hard questions about affordability, even when it gets awkward. Families who love their home 5+ years later aren't the ones who had, yes men in their corner. They're the ones who told hard truths when emotions were running high. Buying a house when you feel desperate isn't really about finding the absolute perfect property. It's about protecting your judgment when your search tries to compromise it. Build your early warning system. Lock in your criteria before emotions kick in. Know your real alternatives and what they actually cost compared to buying. Reset your palate when it gets contaminated, and use your team to reality check your decisions. That's what separates families who love their next home from the ones who regret it after a certain period of time. And again, my clear-headed buyer system walks you through exactly this approach. You'll find the link in the description. Most Toronto buyers think that the biggest financial risk is overpaying for a house. But if you're selling a condo to buy that house, there's a hidden cost that could hit you for, I think, $30,000, and most agents will never bring it up. I break down exactly what it is and how to avoid it in my video, The $30,000 Mistake Every Condo Seller Makes. You'll find it right here.